The kids are scared of you, and James doesn't want any drama. We need to respect their feelings." I stared at my mother's message, my hand trembling slightly as I set down my cup. Scared of me? The aunt who had secretly funded their entire college education for the past 4 years? My name is Emma Sullivan, and at 38, I'd just been uninvited from my niece and nephew's college graduation, the very education I made possible. The irony would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. 4 years ago, when my brother James lost his job due to company downsizing, I'd stepped in anonymously through the university's financial aid office. His twins, Amy and Michael, had just been accepted to prestigious universities, but with James's unemployment and mounting debts, their dreams of higher education seemed impossible. I remember the day James called me in tears, not asking for help. He was too proud for that, but just needing someone to listen. "I failed them, Emma," he'd sobbed. "They worked so hard, and I can't even give them this." That night, I contacted the universities and arranged to cover their tuition anonymously. I had built a successful life for myself, and while I lived modestly, my investments had done well. I could afford to help, and these were my brother's kids. How could I not? Over the years, I'd watched from a distance as Amy and Michael thrived in college. Through my parents' updates, I learned about Amy's research in marine biology and Michael's achievements in computer science. I never told anyone about my contribution, wanting them to succeed without feeling indebted to me. But somewhere along the line, things had changed. James's wife, Karen, had started spreading stories about me, painting me as unstable because I chose to live alone and didn't conform to her idea of what a proper family woman should be. The kids, who once loved spending time with their cool Aunt Emma, gradually became distant. I picked up my phone again, reading my mother's next message. "You understand, right? Karen says the kids need positive energy for their special day. Maybe we can send you pictures?" Pictures, like I was some distant relative rather than the aunt who'd invested over $200,000 in their future. The aunt who'd attended every school play, every sports game, until Karen decided I wasn't family material. My father's message followed. "Princess, please don't make this difficult. James is finally getting back on his feet, and the kids are doing so well. Let's not stir up any issues." I walked to my home office, opening the drawer where I kept all the documentation of my contributions. Every payment, every confirmation, every thank you letter from the universities acknowledging the anonymous donor who'd supported 2 promising students. For 4 years, I'd stayed silent, watching as James and Karen took credit for making sacrifices to put their kids through college. I'd smiled through family dinners where they talked about how they'd managed to pull through financially. I even nodded when Karen bragged about their financial planning skills. My phone buzzed again. A message from Karen herself. "Emma, I'm glad Mom told you about tomorrow. The kids need stability right now, and your presence would only upset them. I'm sure you understand, given your situation." My situation. Code for being single, successful, and not fitting into their narrow view of what a woman should be. I'd heard the whispers at family gatherings, seen the way Karen pulled the kids closer when I approached, as if my independence was somehow contagious. I sat down at my computer, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. One email, that's all it would take to reveal everything. One message to the financial aid office requesting that they acknowledge my contribution at the graduation ceremony, as was their standard practice with major donors. But I hesitated. Was I ready to unleash the chaos that would follow? Ready to see the looks on their faces when they realized that the aunt they pushed away, the one they deemed unstable and scary, had been their silent supporter all along? My phone lit up with another message from my mother. "Emma, please confirm you won't come tomorrow. James is worried you might show up anyway." I picked up my phone, my decision made. Sometimes silence isn't golden. Sometimes it's just another form of enabling bad behavior. It was time for my family to learn the truth about their unstable aunt and her contribution to those graduation caps they'd be wearing tomorrow. I arrived at the university an hour before the graduation ceremony, not as a guest, but as a donor attending the pre-ceremony reception. The financial aid director, Ms. Thompson, greeted me warmly, completely unaware of the family drama about to unfold. "Miss Sullivan, we're so pleased you finally decided to be recognized," she said, handing me a VIP badge. "Your generous contribution has made such a difference. Both Amy and Michael have been exceptional students. I smiled, accepting the badge and the irony of the situation. Will the donor acknowledgement still be part of the ceremony? Of course, we've added you to the program. You'll be recognized right before the engineering and science graduates, which includes both your niece and nephew, if I'm not mistaken. I nodded, my heart racing as I spotted my family entering the main auditorium through another door. My mother, perfectly coiffed as always, my father in his best suit, James and Karen looking proud and completely oblivious. The twins walked ahead of them, their graduation robes crisp and new. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Karen. Emma, security has been notified that you're not welcome. Don't make a scene. I glanced down at my VIP donor badge and couldn't help but smile. Security wouldn't be an issue today. The ceremony began traditionally enough. The dean's speech, the valedictorian's address, all leading up to the moment I'd been both dreading and anticipating. Miss Thompson approached the podium, her voice clear and professional. Before we begin presenting degrees, we'd like to acknowledge a special donor whose generosity has made a significant impact on our university community. 4 years ago, this individual stepped forward to fully support 2 of our brightest students. I watched my family from my seat in the VIP section. They were paying polite attention, completely unaware of what was coming. This donor, who chose to remain anonymous until today, has contributed over $200,000 to ensure these students could pursue their dreams without financial burden. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Emma Sullivan. The applause started, then faltered as confusion spread through my family's section. I stood up, straightening my jacket as I walked to the podium. From the corner of my eye, I could see Karen's face turn pale, James's jaw drop, and my parents freeze in their seats. Ms. Sullivan's generous donation has fully funded the education of 2 exceptional students in our graduating class today, Amy and Michael Crawford. The twins' expressions shifted from confusion to shock as they realized what was being said. All those years of believing their parents had somehow managed to fund their education, all those times they'd been told to stay away from their unstable aunt. It was all unraveling in front of hundreds of people. I stepped up to the microphone, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. Education has always been important to me. I began, sticking to the simple speech I prepared. When I saw 2 bright young minds at risk of missing out on their dreams due to financial hardship, I knew I had to help. I chose to remain anonymous because I believed the focus should be on their achievements, not my contribution. I paused, making eye contact with Amy and Michael. I've watched with pride as these students excelled in their fields. Today isn't about me, it's about their hard work, their dedication, and their future. Congratulations, class of 2025. The applause this time was thunderous, but I barely heard it. I was watching my family's reaction. Karen had her head in her hands, James was staring at the floor, and my parents looked like they'd seen a ghost. The twins, however, were looking at me with a mixture of confusion, gratitude, and dawning understanding. As I returned to my seat, my phone lit up with messages. Mom, Emma, why didn't you tell us? Dad, Princess, we had no idea. James, we need to talk. Karen, how dare you embarrass us like this? I ignored them all. This moment wasn't about their feelings or their embarrassment. It was about truth, about consequences, and about showing my niece and nephew that the aunt they'd been taught to fear had always been in their corner. The rest of the ceremony continued, but the damage, or perhaps the healing, was already done. When Amy and Michael's names were called, they each paused on stage, looking toward the VIP section where I sat. Amy gave a small wave, and Michael nodded, the first acknowledgement I'd received from them in years. As the ceremony ended and the graduates threw their caps in the air, I stood up to leave. I had said what needed to be said, revealed what needed to be revealed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about showing people exactly who you are and letting them live with the knowledge of how wrong they've been. The aftermath of the graduation ceremony unfolded exactly as I'd expected. As families gathered outside the auditorium for photos and celebrations, my phone continued to buzz with messages from relatives who'd watched the ceremony livestream. Aunt Susan, you're a hero. Emma, Uncle Pete, always knew Karen was feeding those kids lies about you. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching as my family huddled together, clearly discussing what had just happened. Karen was gesturing wildly, her face red with anger, while James kept shaking his head, looking stunned. My parents seemed torn, glancing between their son's family and where I stood. Then something unexpected happened. Amy broke away from the group, still in her graduation gown, and walked straight toward me. Michael hesitated for a moment, then followed his sister. "Aunt Emma," Amy's voice was soft, uncertain. "Can we talk?" I nodded, leading them to a quiet spot under a nearby tree. Up close, I could see tears in Amy's eyes. "Why?" Michael asked. "Why did you do it? And why didn't you tell us?" I took a deep breath. "Because you deserve the opportunity, and I didn't tell you because I wanted you to focus on your studies, not feel obligated to me." "But Mom said," Amy started, then stopped, looking embarrassed. "That I was unstable, dangerous, a bad influence." I finished for her. "Tell me, looking back, did I ever do anything to deserve those labels?" They both shook their heads, memories seemingly flooding back. Memories of birthday parties I'd organized, science projects I'd helped with, the countless times I'd shown up to support them before Karen decided I was a threat to her perfect family image. "We should have known better," Michael said quietly. "Should have questioned why we were suddenly supposed to be afraid of you." "You were kids," I replied. "You trusted your parents. That's normal." "But we're not kids anymore," Amy said firmly, "and we owe you so much more than an apology." Before I could respond, Karen's sharp voice cut through the air. "Amy, Michael, get away from her right now." But for the first time, neither twin moved at their mother's command. "No, Mom," Amy said, turning to face her approaching parents. "We're done letting you control our relationship with Aunt Emma." Karen reached for Amy's arm, but she pulled away. "She manipulated this whole situation," Karen hissed. "She humiliated our family in front of everyone." "The only person who should be humiliated is you," Michael responded, his voice steady. "You lied to us about Aunt Emma for years, made us fear her, and all while she was silently making our dreams possible." My parents had joined the group now, my mother wringing her hands nervously. "Perhaps we should discuss this at home," she suggested. "There's nothing to discuss," I said calmly. "I made a choice to help Amy and Michael. I kept it anonymous to avoid exactly this kind of drama. But when you decided to ban me from their graduation, from seeing the culmination of their hard work, I decided the truth needed to come out." James, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "Emma, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," I replied. "But you do need to know that things will be different from now on. I won't be the family scapegoat anymore. I won't be pushed aside or labeled as unstable just because I don't fit Karen's idea of what a woman should be." The twins moved to stand beside me, a gesture that spoke volumes. Karen's face contorted with fury, but before she could speak, Amy interrupted. "Mom, Dad, we're having dinner with Aunt Emma tonight. We have 4 years of catching up to do. And a lot of thank yous to say," Michael added. As we walked away together, leaving my stunned family behind, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The truth hadn't just set me free, it had given Amy and Michael the chance to see through the lies they'd been told. That evening, over dinner at my favorite restaurant, my niece and nephew shared stories about their college years, their dreams for the future, and their regret for believing the lies about me. We laughed, we cried, and we began rebuilding the relationship that Karen had tried so hard to destroy. "You know," Amy said as we finished dessert, "Mom always said you were dangerous because you'd influence us to be different. I think maybe that's exactly what we needed." Michael nodded. "Different is good. Different is what got us through college. Different is what made you strong enough to help us even when everyone pushed you away." As I drove home that night, my phone buzzed with one final message from my father. "Princess, I'm sorry. We should have seen through Karen's lies. Should have protected you. You're the best of us, and we forgot that." I smiled, not responding. Sometimes the best endings aren't about forgiveness or reconciliation with everyone. Sometimes they're about finding your truth, standing your ground, and letting the right people find their way back to you. Amy and Michael had found their way back. That was enough.